Welcome you all here tonight. My name is Ken Reese. I'm the president of the Historical Society for 26 years. I welcome you here tonight, especially those who have association with St. Joseph Orphanage. We welcome you who are especially here tonight. You're our guests here tonight. Our guest speakers have a little trouble with his audio equipment, so we're going to do a quick business meeting first, and he'll give a talk at the very least, and then we're going to ask questions and answers afterwards to make sure everybody gets a chance to say whatever it is they want to say. So we'll get started with the business meeting first. Have our treasurer give a treasury report.
We started the month of February with a balance of $15,084.98. Took in membership dues, we took in donations, we sold some publications. We had income of $1,048.47. Bought a couple of little things for the office. We spent $42.34, leaving us with a balance of $16,091.11. And are you going to cover scanner and all that later?
Yes.
Okay. That's where we ended up then, $16,091.11.
Meeting last month was held here at the Wilder City Building. Ken opened the meeting by introducing Don Sorrell, who gave a talk on the Campbell County agriculture, past and present, and he also gave an interesting talk on the Campbell County 4-H program. Last month we had a balance of $15,884 in the Treasury. We had 203 members. Our next newsletter will be the May edition, should come out about the end of April. Last month we had $2,340 in our purchase fund for the new microfilm reader. And we also had sign up for Schroeder rewards program. We were asking people to sign up for the rewards program to get funds for the organization. And just a reminder from last month that Regional History Day is March 19th at Northern Kentucky University.
Thank you.
That's the abbreviated.
Thank you. Jan Lester, paid membership.
Currently, we have about 215 paid memberships. That includes life members, regular memberships, and a few business memberships, mostly the local libraries. And
Good deal. All right, we're going to start a brief run through of reports. Gifts and donations. Richard.
Maggie Gosney donated us some yearbooks at South Middle School for 80, 81, and 82. Campbell County High School 83, 84, 85, 86. And then Shelley Cardial of Kirkland, Washington mailed us a picture she found of identified as Albert Peeman of Dayton, Kentucky. It's an antique picture, kind of neat. Those are only donations.
History Day?
History Day is March 19th. It opens at 8 o'clock as usual. One thing that's different this year is the parking. If you park in the same garage, NKU is saying they're going to have somebody there charge you $5 to get out. They are providing free parking, but it's over in lots K and L, which is kind of on the opposite side of the student center. Maybe a little bit farther walk, but if you park in the same garage, they are threatening to charge, and it's not something History Day can validate and pay for you. It's a university level decision. But lots K and L will provide free parking. There will be signs for that.
Okay, thank you. Steve Battistone on picture albums.
Picture albums got a current count. We're at 2,500 or 5,890 pictures scanned now. So the count keeps rising, and I've recently just scanned some additional ones, and we're still going through and cataloging them all so that we can create a database, make it easy to find and identify all of them, so that when people want to get a reprint, we know exactly which photo it is. If we have it out at one of our events, they can identify it by number, and then we can get the reprint for them. Make sure they get the right picture.
And also with our pictures, we've donated the Gray Family Photography Studios in Fort Thomas, donated their entire collection of negatives to us. So we have over 500,000 negatives from that family's archives, and we can make copies of any of them you want. For a price. We're not doing it for free, but as part of our way of raising a little bit of money. But we have the entire archives now at our facility. So if you were married and you had a picture taken by Gray Photography, we could probably find it for you and make a copy if you're interested. Newsletter, Jan.
As Dan said, the main newsletter will be out hopefully at the end of April. And I want to continue a little bit on membership. We do have membership applications here tonight. I know we have a lot of members who don't usually make it to the meetings. Thanks for making the effort to be here tonight. If you're not a member, $12 a year is all we charge for membership. You get our newsletter, and you get a call or an email to remind you about our monthly meetings. We always have interesting speakers or go to an interesting historic site. So,
Correspondence and emails.
okay. There's information here about the Campbell County Library Arts and Culture Series that's coming up. I'll leave it up here on the table. The second Saturday Genealogy down in Frankfurt is this Saturday, March 12th. Their topic this month is using supplemental records with Sherry Daniels. She's the head of reference services for their library down there. Like the Draper manuscripts, other things, the things that aren't the normal things you go to when you first start doing your genealogy. So she's going to talk about some of those supplemental records. And you don't have to make a reservation for this, but they would like you to let them know if you can come. And the information will be up here. Here's more information about History Day with the different, don't let the $5 parking scare you away. History Day is a great event, lots of sessions that you can attend, and lots of displays to see.
Our opening speaker for history this year is talking to John Roebling Bridge, the suspension bridge between Covington and Cincinnati, so he does a great job. Cemetery report, Marvin.
Well, there's no current ongoing project, but there are a ton of ongoing projects. So I'd just like to ask if anybody has got death certificates or maybe information in the back of your Bible, the front of your Bible, we would like to have that. Now, don't get offended when we say we don't want the Bible, because we could fill a couple of rooms if we took all the Bibles. We just need that information. It's something else that maybe would be beneficial for those of us doing some cemetery research. The death certificates and the coroner's reports, but if you've got death cards from relatives, friends, family, we would like to have those, and we'll put them in our family files, if nothing else. It's maybe the only link from somebody to their great-grandfather.
Or
That's
copies.
about it.
Copies. We don't want your originals. We just want your copies.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Well, let me throw this in more about History Day. For those of us that enjoy that, it's Christmas and the 4th of July together. $5.
Yeah, it's a great day. I mean, it's filled with information, and it's just a great day to participate and work with each other on our own interest. Veterans report. Pam's not here tonight. She said we have, as of right now, 13,290 records on Campbell County veterans. We have the largest collection of veterans information in probably the tri-state. And then we have just finished redoing our veterans room, so we have a really nice display now for veterans. So if you need to stop up sometime and look at it, it's a great place to look at. Evergreen Cemeteries. Anybody have a report on that tonight?
Well, a short one. I don't attend their meetings, but Mike Stahl has agreed to attend the Friends of Evergreen Cemetery group meetings beginning the next meeting in April. They meet, I guess, monthly, and they have a group of volunteers who are trying very hard to make improvements at Evergreen. It's a huge job, and they can only do a little bit because they are all volunteers. So they're trying, and they've got some little projects. So Mike will be reporting to us in the future on those meetings.
And for those who don't know what we're really talking about for Evergreen Cemetery, just like all cemeteries in the state of Kentucky, to maintain the cemeteries, when you're buried, you pay in for a perpetual care. Perpetual care money goes into a fund. The cemetery cannot touch that money. The only thing they can use off of that money is the interest. And that's the way state law reads. That's keeping people from pocketing money years ago. But the problem with this, you know how much interest you're getting on your savings accounts right now. How much did we get last month for our savings?
67 cents.
So Evergreen Cemetery is having so much trouble even mowing the grass is they have to bring in prisoners from the jail in Newport. That's what kind of trouble they're in. Most cemeteries are all going to end up that way, for the simple fact, unless the state law is changed, and interest rates goes up sometime, cemeteries just can't hardly make a go of it anymore. They've got plenty of money, they can't touch it by state law. So if you know somebody in state government, get their ear and talk to them about this. This is a major problem for all the cemeteries in the state. So that's where we're coming from for this. We had a microfilm reader and kind of went kaput, and we worked on a couple other ideas and finally decided we need to buy a new one. And the new one will allow us to scan all those great photographies so we can actually make pictures in-house. So we're looking for donations for it. Could you speak to that for a moment?
We were getting some really good donations. Jan put a nice letter in the newsletter that went out, and a lot of people sent money in, and we've collected about 25% of what we need right now. We also had one of our members make a donation who was a former GE employee, and GE has matching funds, and we just got the check for that, so we're actually probably close to 30% of the way toward our goal now. But we're still about $7,000, $7,500 short. It's a very expensive proposition. It's about $10,000 to buy this thing with the computer software and the computers and monitors and printers and everything that you need. We talked about it at the board meeting Monday night, and we're going to put a letter out to the business community in Campbell County and see if we can solicit some funds from them, and then we'll decide how to proceed once we do that. But hopefully we can send this out to a kind of a targeted group in Campbell County, and hopefully they support us and we get the money in to, to pay for this whole thing. Because it will be very, very nice. I'm using this story in the letter because it was such a touching story. We had a lady call, and I think some of you heard this already. She was married 52 years ago, and she couldn't afford her wedding photographs when she got married. 52 years ago. Now she can afford her wedding photographs. So she called back in October, November, and she said, do you by chance still have the negatives? Well, like Ken said, we have 500,000 negatives. We went through them all, found the date that she was married, found her file, and found all of her wedding pictures, and we were able to reprint them all, and the lady just broke down in tears. She was so thrilled that she was finally able to get her wedding pictures after 52 years. And that's the kind of thing we can do, and this scanner that we're looking to buy allows us to do that very quickly in-house. It'll read those 35mm slides or film strips, and we're going to get a photo quality printer with it so that we can print those directly and take care of people right when they come in the office or right when they call. So that's why we're looking to do this thing. Okay?
Thank you, Steve. We are in the process of reorganizing our office on the second floor of the courthouse in Alexandria. We have a research library, which is as big as this room. We have a museum. We have an office. We have an entire room dedicated to Spears Hospital in Dayton, Kentucky. We have an entire collection of all sorts of things. And most doctors understand what most of the instruments are for. I don't even want to know what most of the instruments are for. But we have an unbelievable collection of stuff from that hospital. And then we have the military room. And we have a lot of stuff. So if you haven't been up to our museum or our office, please stop by. We're open on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And call before you come up just to make sure we're there. We're all volunteers, but you're more than welcome. We had Carol Rich, who's here tonight, I believe. Yes. Carol had to resign recently, and we thank her for running when she did. And we had a meeting Monday night and decided that Jeff Weimer, which was the next person on the list, so we offered it to Jeff, and he's accepted. Jeff, you want to stand, please? So he's our newest board member. Okay, we were talking about office reorganization. I have probably 150 of these that I've been trying to give away. They have little or no connection directly to Campbell County. If anybody likes Kentucky Explorer, you can have all of them you want. I've been trying to give them away for months now. The last ditch attempt is going to be History Day, and after that they're going in the recycling bin. So if you have any interest at all in Kentucky Explorer, There's lots and lots of articles. The Campbell guy just doesn't end up in it very often. And that's why we're getting rid of them. We just don't have any, it just takes up too much space, and we have too many things being donated to us that are Campbell County related. So we're getting rid of things that aren't directly Campbell County. So if you have any interest, please see me before you leave. This is just 2 of them. I got boxes and boxes of them out there. Okay, tonight Camp Springs is represented. They have a newsletter. If anybody would like to know information on what's going on in Camp Springs, of course they sponsor the Herb Store, which is when this year?
October 16th.
October 16th. Okay, good deal. And very quickly, I'll run over future meetings. 19th of March is History Day at NKU. 14th, our speaker's here tonight, as a matter of fact. Schroeder is going to be here talking about, and there's several names for this. Ross Park, Riverview Park, March's Playground. I had a whole bunch of names connected with it, but it was located along the river, and its claim to fame was the wonderful swimming pool that was a little chilly when you get into it. It was fed by a well. That's on the 14th. That's here at Wilder. On 12th of May, we're meeting in Newport Public Library. We're going to talk about Italians in Newport. One of our board members, whose family is Italian from Newport, is going to give that talk for us. On the 9th of June, we're going to Frederick's Landing in Wilder here, and we're having our annual picnic and our Volunteer of the Year Award. On the 14th of July, we're going to visit the only African-American school Campbell County ever had. It's Southgate School, located on Southgate Street behind the Hofbrau House in Newport. If you were an African-American in Campbell County, you could not attend a public school except that one down in Newport. And then if you wanted to go to high school, you had to be transported over to Covington to go to Lincoln Grant. Lincoln Grant's building has just been sold. It's going to get rehabbed finally after all these years of sitting vacant. So we're going to visit that school. It's got a historical mark on it. If you ever want to drive past, it's the only house left on that street on the left-hand side. It's right behind the Hofbrau House in Newport. On the 16th of July is the Backwoods Farm Tour, because I have the Campbell County Log Cabin Museum in Grand Select. My museum will be a part of that. On August the 11th, we're going to visit NKU, and we're going to visit the Gosney Log Cabin. If you've ever seen the log cabin on the campus out there and wondered how it got there, I was involved in the transporting of it. It's Campbell County's only mobile log cabin. Originated in Grand Slick on Clay Ridge Road. Mr. Turner, who ran the bank in Alexandria, decided he wanted to play cards. Being a Baptist, his wife didn't approve, so he brought the cabin up, put it by the lake behind what was his bank, and told us why he played cards there. And actually, they were using it as a swimming, change of clothes to go swimming, but actually was playing cards. When the bank was getting expanded, it was going to be torn down. So Mr. Russ Stevens, I don't know if any of you remember Russ Stevens, but he was quite a character. He was one of our early members. He arranged for the construction company to come in with 2 bulldozers. They came in like this, picked it straight up off the ground, backed a flatbed tractor trailer underneath of it, and took it to the park. And that's the second time it was down the road. It sat in the park for about 10 years. Nobody did much with it. It was going to be torn down, and NKU, Dr. Claypool, decided he wanted a representative of a one-room schoolhouse. It was never a schoolhouse, and I told him that umpteen times. But he took it down there and said it represents now. So that cabin's been up and down 27 twice. So there's not many counties that claim they have a mobile log cabin, but we have one. So we're going to visit that. Yes?
We just put the front door on it today. Put the back door on and handicap ramp up.
It was constructed and then basically left to deteriorate. It was in terrible condition. Dr. Brian Hackett from NKU took it on as a project with the students, and they're doing a great job. On the August 13th is the A.J. Jolly Festival Lake, which we're going to participate in. September the 8th, Mark Schlachter, who is a final voice on Radio Feed Newport, WNOP in Newport, is going to come and give a talk about that radio station. October 13th, we're going to be at the Newport City Building, and we're going to talk about George Wiedemann and Wiedemann Brewing Company. If you know anybody at all that was worked at Wiedemann's, please send them down that night. We want them to come and tell their stories. October 16th is the Herbst Tour. 10th of November is Dick Riesenberg from this area right here, retired fire chief at Southgate. He's going to come talk about his experience during the Beverly Hills fire. And then finally on December the 8th, we're going to meet back here for our Christmas social, and the Hills of Kentucky Dulcimers are to come play for us. You don't have to be a member to come to any meeting at all. You're welcome to come anytime you like. We would like for you to be a member, obviously, but you don't have to be at all. So tell anybody who wants to come to any of these meetings, If you're interested in some of these topics, please come and do so. We're going to welcome you with open arms, and we hope you do come. All right, this is Dave Schroeder. He's a retired archivist from the Diocese of Covington. Not retired, he's gone. And now he's the director of the Campbell County Public Library. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you. This past week I've run into 3 former bosses, 2 earlier in the week and 1 tonight. Father, where is Father? I just saw him. There he is. Father was chancellor when I was archivist for the diocese, so I've run into 3 of my former bosses in 1 week. So God's trying to tell me something. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit tonight about St. Joseph Orphanage. How many of you all are familiar with the Diocesan Catholic Children's Home in Fort Mitchell on Orphanage Road? Okay. So that replaced St. Joseph Orphanage. So we'll get to that point in a few minutes. But we're going to start out with Campbell County's Catholic Orphanage. Kenton County had St. what? John. St. John. Campbell County had St. Joseph. It's a very interesting story, I think. And if you're having trouble hearing me in the back, just raise your hand and I'll talk louder. It started out in the 1860s. It was about 10 years after St. John's Orphanage started in Kenton County, so it was a contemporary of St. John's Orphanage. And it started out as the St. Boniface Orphanage Society, which tells you something about its background. What ethnic background started this, if it's the St. Boniface Orphanage Society? Germans. St. Boniface was the patron saint of Germany. So in 1866, a group of men and women, it was a mixed group, mostly men on the Orphan Society, and then the women founded an auxiliary later on. But they started this group in 1866. And they encouraged all Catholics of Newport and Dayton to join. Why those 2 cities? What's missing? Why were they not encouraging the Catholics of Bellevue to join in 1866? There was no parish in Bellevue in 1866. So we're predating the Bellevue parishes. We're predating St. Joe's and Cold Spring. There would have been St. Joe's and Camp Spring by this time and 12 Mile. But Dayton and Newport would have been the larger parishes in Campbell County. So they're appealing to the large parishes. In 1870, the Walsh Farm in Cold Spring is acquired for a site for an orphanage. Why does the Walsh name sound familiar? The Walsh family were distillers. They were Irish. If you go to the cathedral, you will see they made a very large donation to build the facade of the cathedral in 1910. And we'll hear their names several times throughout this presentation. The Walsh family were a very wealthy Irish immigrant family who made it big on whiskey and used it very well to support Catholic institutions across northern Kentucky. Their distillery was actually in Wilder at one time. So yeah, we're standing in their turf, so to speak. They were. It was interesting in that they supported primarily Irish-speaking or English-speaking Catholic organizations. This was the only exception I can find where they were supporting more of a German organization. So it was on the Newport and Alexandria Turnpike. This was the bishop who was around at the time. Anybody recognize this bishop? Bishop Tebby or Toby, correct? He was the 2nd Bishop of Covington. This is a painting by Leon Lippert, who was a Northern Kentucky painter. Newport, actually, so we're in good stead there as well. Bishop Tebby was known as the Orphan Bishop. He started 3 orphanages in the Diocese of Covington. So one of his things that he kind of took under his wing were orphan children. And he really put a lot of energy into schools and orphanages. So there's the site. If you look, there's the Disabled American Veterans Building, and then you'll see the cemetery. See the cemetery in green? That's primarily the site of the original St. Joseph Orphanage. So if you're trying to figure out about where we're talking about where the orphanage sat, that's where we're talking about. So, and I believe there is a section in the cemetery, and Father might know better than I, that is actually set aside for orphan burials. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I don't know that definitely, but
Yes.
I think I've heard that.
Yes, but the orphanage actually predates the parish. So when we're talking about the founding of the orphanage, there is no parish at this point. So the property is owned by the St. Boniface Orphan Society, and it's being funded by the society. The orphanage was originally put under the charge of the Brothers of the Poor of St. Francis, which is a religious order of men. They were originally from Aachen, Germany. They came to the United States in 1866 and set up a boys' home in Delhi, which lasted for many, many years. Bishop Tebby asked them to come and start this orphanage for boys. So when we're talking about the original orphanage, it was only for boys. We'll see when it changes. It changes fairly quickly. But originally it was for boys only. And their motto is serving Christ and the poor. They have a counterpart, the Brothers of the Poor of St. Francis. They're the Sisters of the Poor of St. Francis. They started a major institution that still exists in northern Kentucky. St. Elizabeth Hospital. So if you remember the nuns that ran St. Elizabeth Hospital, they're the women's half of this order we're talking about. Both male and female portions of this order were working primarily with health care, with children, and with poor immigrants, mostly from Germany. So that was their mission. This is an early constitution of the society, and it's from the archives of the Sisters of Notre Dame, and we'll talk about why the Sisters of Notre Dame play a part. I did a lot of my research at the Heights in Park Hill. They have a wonderful collection of materials on all the institutions they've been in. You will see that the file folder, which you probably can't read, calls it the Annals. And basically that means a yearly account. So most religious orders of women kept a book at each site that they were missioned, and they wrote in it what happened during the year. So the book became known as the Annals. From what I understand, the Sisters of Notre Dame continued this practice. So as long as they're in a mission, they're continuing that book. So that book is a complete record of when they started there till when they left. So I'm going to be reading some portions of those writings to you as we go on this evening. So there is the front of the book. Halfway through the book it changes to this. Same exact book, just in German. So again, we're talking about, this is a German institution. Came off to a difficult start. They had a building on the property. There was a house on the property, and they started the brothers started the orphanage in the house. In 1871, a new orphanage building was built at the cost of $15,000, which in the 1860s was a considerable sum of money. So there was an initial push and a good fundraising campaign to get the orphanage off the ground. There was one problem. And Bishop Tebby had this problem in a number of parishes in the diocese over his tenure. There were several parishes sold at the courthouse door during his time period. There was a panic in the 1870s that caused a collapse in the market, similar to what we had a few years back. And there were, many of the parishes were investing in stocks. Can't do that now, not in the way that they were doing it. And they were doing it as individual institutions and parishes, and a number of parishes were actually sold at the courthouse door, and the parishioners had to raise the money themselves and buy the parishes back. Well, what happened at the orphanage was that the contractor was fully paid. So the brothers fully paid, and the society fully paid the contractor, the general contractor. He failed to pay the subcontractors. All the subcontractors took the diocese and the orphanage to court and claimed they had not been paid. They had not been paid. The contractor was nowhere to be found. He got his money and hit the road. This is 1866. It's not like you're going to be able to call him on the phone. So it came down to the fact that basically the orphan society had to pay for the building twice. So technically, instead of the $15,000, it cost closer to $25,000. So this is the first incidence of a rocky start. It became so difficult, the brothers decided that they were going to withdraw. So the brothers left the orphanage. It was somewhat of a mutual agreement, according to the annals of the sisters. The brothers were not having a good run of it, and they were being burdened by this huge debt. And so Bishop Tebby decided that he was going to bring the Sisters of Notre Dame to the orphanage. Now, the Sisters of Notre Dame were founded in Germany. The picture to the far left are the two founding members in Germany, in Coesfeld. Father Elting was the spiritual leader of the sisters. They were established in the 1850s in Germany. They follow the rule of St. Julie Billiart. So if you go to a Notre Dame institution, St. Julie is prominent in many of their institutions, and the sisters, of course, run a preschool that's named St. Julie's School in her memory. There's a French order as well that follows this, the rule of, or the spirituality of Sister Julie. Does anybody know what they're called? Yes, Sisters of Notre Dame de Mour. So that's the French. The nuns that we have in Covington are the German portion of the order. And so Bishop Toby in 1877 relinquished the orphanage from the brothers, and he asked the Sisters of Notre Dame to come and to take over the orphanage. The sisters had been fleeing, they were fleeing Germany during this time period. Anybody know what the Kulturkampf was? Otto von Bismarck was the Chancellor of Germany. And there were basically two major areas of Germany. In the north was Prussia with a P, not Russia, but Prussia. In the south was Bavaria. Prussia is predominantly Protestant, Bavaria was predominantly Catholic. Before 1870, when you talk about Germany, there is no Germany. If you look at a map before 1870 of Europe, there is no Germany. There's Prussia, there's Bavaria, there's Oldenburg, there's Hanover, there's all these little principalities and nations that all share a German culture and they all share a German language, but there's no Germany. Bismarck unifies the nation as one German nation. He wants to further unify it through religion. And so he starts attacking the Catholic Church basically in Germany. And so he starts passing laws that forbid sisters to teach in schools, that make priests, clergy, employees of the state instead of the church. And so he's taking steps to take control of the Catholic Church in Germany. He wants basically to get rid of the Catholic Church in Germany and make it a Protestant nation. This left many religious orders like the Sisters of Notre Dame in a pickle, so to speak. They were forced to give up many of their institutions, one of which was an orphanage in Germany. There were stricter and stricter laws. There were laws that were passed that they were going to have to not wear habits, religious habits, any longer. So it's becoming more and more difficult for them to continue as women religious in their own homeland. And so the decision was made to leave Germany. And so within about a 3-year period, the Mother Superior was able to move about 300 sisters almost entirely from Germany to the United States. And this was done basically for religious liberty, religious freedom. The sisters were needed in this country as teachers because there were large numbers of German immigrants coming in. And the sisters were fleeing Germany because they could no longer basically carry out their mission. The culture camp was a complete failure, and eventually Bismarck abandoned it. But before that happened, about 300 sisters left Germany and came to the U.S. After it finished, a number went back, but many of them stayed, and the religious orders flourished in the United States, including the Sisters of Notre Dame. Bishop Tebby had a sister named Sister Modesta Tebby, who was a sister of Notre Dame. And so one of the reasons they came to Covington was his blood sister was a sister of Notre Dame. And so Sister Modesta is in Covington at this time period. They arrived in the United States in 1874, and a group of sisters come to Covington. Their first settlement in the U.S. was at Mother of God School in 1874. Their main convent used to be in downtown Covington. So if you're on 5th Street going towards Newport in Covington, you have the federal courthouse, the newer federal courthouse, where Notre Dame Academy used to be on that site, and the Mother House used to be on that site. So that's where they started when they came to Covington. So the Sisters of Notre Dame take over the convent, or take over the orphanage. I know that was long, but I'm trying to give you a little bit of a background here. They signed a contract in 1877 with the Orphan Society, and the contract is very long, and it's in German, of course, because both parties were German speaking. But I copied a few of the things that I thought were interesting. The first part of the contract was what the sisters would provide, and they would provide the students, the orphans, with teaching in religion, Bible history, English, and German grammar, composition, reading, arithmetic, geography, nature study, American history, singing, writing, and drawing. So the sisters were preparing to educate these students like they would any other student in any of their elementary schools. So they were not seeing the orphanage as a lesser institution. They were teaching a full range of courses to the students. That was part of the original contract. Another part of the contract was that the St. Boniface Orphan Society would assume the obligation to provide each sister with housing and food and pay them a salary of $50 a year. So each sister received $50 a year in room and board. And it is signed, this is really interesting, I think. This is where the two worlds start coming together. It's signed by Bishop Tebby for the diocese and his blood sister, Sister Maria Modesta Tebby, Superior of the Sisters of Notre Dame. So the brother and sister, Mother Superior, Bishop, signed the contract to bring the Sisters of Notre Dame to the orphanage. It's nice to have sisters who have lots of personnel, who are willing to do good work. So from the annals, this is one of the first entries in the annals. The sisters wrote that there was a mortgage of $35,000 on the property, and they were living in great poverty. Sister Mary Modesta brought Sister Mary Clementine, who was superior, for the following sisters: Sister Mary Ludmilda, Sister Mary Stanislaus, Sister Mary Leonardus, Sister Mary Anna, Mary Ildolfosson, I can't even pronounce that name. Any guesses?
Ildefons.
Thank you. Which I am assuming is a derivation of Aloysius.
I would accept.
Yes. The Sisters of Notre Dame do have some Jesuit connections as well in their spirituality, so that's why I'm assuming that there's some there. And Sister Mary Leocotia and Mary Philippine. There were 67 orphanage, all boys aged 2 to 19 years old. So when they arrived, that was their one of the first recordings they kept in their annals. Got ahead of myself. Okay, this was the second entry, which I thought was, this tells you really the situation the sisters were walking into. It says, there was not sufficient food, and Sister Mary Clementine asked the neighbors for a supply of potatoes and vegetables for their first dinner. The children slept between coarse blankets without bed sheets. The sisters practiced great economy, however, this did not cover the great debt. So the sisters had agreed to take on this institution under the full knowledge that they were under a debt of about $30,000 at this point, $34,000 to be exact, and that there was little finances. It just amazes me that, and it's so different than today, that a group of women would come to this country not speaking English or speaking very little English. They would agree to take on this institution, which is kind of on shaky ground to begin with this huge debt, and they did it with faith. If you read the letters, they're talking about we're taking this institution over, the children need us, and so we're going. God will provide. Cast it to the wind and it'll work. And it does. But there's still some more troubles on the way. In the meantime, St. Joseph Church is established in 1870. So there is a St. Joseph Church. In 1881, Father Herman Kramer, who was the pastor at that time and the chaplain for the orphanage, built a church. It was finished in 1882 on a site near the orphanage. How many of you all remember that church? It stood until the 1950s, so it was there in many of our lifetimes. The sisters refer to the first church as merely a stable, and they put it in quotes. So the original church before this one must have been a real sight to behold. So it was very exciting. The sisters were very excited about having this new church in their community, and the people, I'm sure, at St. Joe's were very excited about having this church as well. In the meantime, the creditors started knocking on the sisters' doors. One creditor came and said he needed $3,000 and he would give the sisters 24 hours notice. If the sisters could not produce the $3,000 within the 24-hour time period, he was going to the courthouse and filing suit, and the property would be put up for sale because the sisters did not have the money to cover it. And so the Sister Superior at the time went to Father Thien, who was the pastor at Corpus Christi, and told him the story. She said, "We don't know what we're going to do with the children. We're going to have to find some place for the children to live." Father Thien decided he was going to give it one last ditch effort. And starting that morning until late that evening, he went door to door in Newport, and this is according to the sisters' annals. He went door to door in Newport, collected money, told them the orphanage was in trouble, he needed to raise this money, and he needed to do it quick. Now these are poor immigrants. This is the 1870s. These are poor immigrants living in mostly the west side of Newport. He knocked on every door, by the way. He didn't care if they were Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, whatever. He was asking to help the orphans. That was his goal. He went to Sister the next morning, and the quote is, and I love the quote, he told Sister according to Sister. And it doesn't say which sister, it just says Sister. But he said, "Sister, I have all the money in my pocket." He pulled it out of his pocket and gave it to her. She went to the creditor, paid the $3,000, and the orphanage was saved. So one more occasion where somehow, some way, things got done. We have another couple of setbacks. 1884, the orphanage is destroyed by a fire. The sisters didn't leave a whole lot of note about this particular event. They said only the lives of the sisters and the children were saved. And there's very little documentation in the newspapers. We do know that it was a total loss. So they had paid twice for the building, and now it's burned to the ground. And here we are, what are we going to do? We've got all these orphans. We don't know what to do with them. The St. Boniface Orphan Society rallied around again, raised enough money to rebuild the orphanage, which is dedicated in January 1885. And at that time, girls are admitted for the first time. And the notation in the annals is that they wanted to keep the families together. Before that time, they were splitting the boys and the girls up. So brothers and sisters were being split up, and the sisters did not want the families to be split up. And so in 1885, when they built a bigger orphanage, they decided to put both genders together. This is not the end. 1888, guess what we get again? I think the sisters were praying for rain that we had tonight. The building was dedicated in January of 1885, the second one, remember. It burns down in 1888. Again. The flames were so high that the parishioners at St. Joseph Church, remember the picture I just showed you? The women went home, got their blankets, dipped them in water, and threw them on the roof of the church. They were able to save the church from being burnt down, but the orphanage, unfortunately, could not be saved. There was no water near enough to pump out into the building, and there was no running water on the property in 1888. There was only hand pumps. And so the sisters basically sent the boys and themselves into the building, dragged out as much as they possibly could, and just sat there and watched the place burn to the ground. There was really nothing else they could do. So we've been around for how long? 20 years. We've lost 2 buildings. We've been foreclosed on once. We've gone door to door begging to keep the wolves at bay. Yet we still go on. By the way, they did have insurance. So this time we're lucky. We've got $9,000 worth of insurance, which isn't great. But so the second fire happens June 17, 1888. Building was consumed. The sisters actually withdrew at that point. There was discussion about whether they can continue on with an orphanage in Cold Spring. The boys were sent to Columbus, Ohio, and the girls were sent to St. John Orphanage in Fort Mitchell. And so there was a lot of discussion going on between the Orphan Society, the St. Boniface Orphan Society, and the diocese about whether they're going to rebuild again. It almost seemed like this institution was destined to fail. The Orphan Society decides that they're going to give it one more try. And so they do another campaign throughout Campbell County. They raise enough money to build a new building. The sisters and 3 boys return on May 1, 1889, and that is the building that you all remember. So this is the building, it's the core of the institution that we remember when it closed. So I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. So that's where we are in our history. Among the sisters to begin work, the Sisters of Notre Dame, once the building was built, decided to come back. So they came back and continued on at the orphanage. Sister Mary Theodosia came back. She was the superior of the orphanage for many years. She came in 1880, was named superior in 1897, and died on duty in 1923. Just about her entire career was at the orphanage. At her 50th Golden Jubilee, they asked her what she wanted as far as a celebration. She said she wanted the money that had been raised by the parishes in Newport, Cold Spring, Bellevue Dayton to go to the orphans. And so the money that was raised went back to the orphanage to improve the buildings. So Sister Theodosia was somewhat of a legend at the orphanage in the early years. During this time, Mr. Walsh, the older Mr. Walsh, Nicholas Walsh, died. He left the orphanage another 100 acres and $5,000, so a little bit of good luck finally. A few years later, Mr. Schroeder, no relation, from Newport died and left the institution $6,000. These 2 gifts, along with the insurance money, allowed the orphanage to be debt-free for the first time. So the sisters are finally on a firm financial footing. They're not worrying about having to meet the debt. So this is the front of the building as you probably all remembered it. The building was added on to multiple times, and so the original nucleus of the building is in the front, and then there's several additions added on to the back, and then there were outbuildings added on over time. And so there's not one photo that kind of shows it at the beginning. There's actually very few photos of the exterior of the building, but you can see how many times it had been added on to. It was one of those things where when you needed more space, you just put a new building on the back of it, put another one on the back of it. And so it grew over time. This is a picture of the building in the 1920s. So this is what it would have looked like when it was at its height. There were over 130 children there in the 1920s and 1930s. And again, by this time, of course, it's both male and female. This is a newspaper article, and it says, the reconstructed orphan asylum at Cold Spring, which is nearly completed, will be provided with a force pump ample supply enough to protect the building for which the residents of Cold Spring contributed $100. The agreement being that the pump may be used in case of fire in the village. The building will cost about $15,000. It is hoped that the force pump won't be used in order just when the fire breaks out. So basically, not only do the sisters manage to rebuild with the Orphan Society to rebuild the building, but they also get a water suppression system that serves not only the orphanage but the community of Cold Springs. So it's a cooperative agreement. And so the building actually makes it. So orphan life. I've studied St. Joseph Orphanage. I've done a little bit on St. John Orphanage. I've also done some research on the Covington Protestant Children's Home, which was the main Protestant orphanage in Covington. And what I find out about orphanages in general, there tend to be two stereotypes. There's the Annie orphan, where all the orphans are the cute little kids who are dancing around, and yes, they have a hard life, but they make the best of it, and they're plucky orphans, and have this interesting life where they're tricking the headmaster. And then there's the Oliver Twist one where please sir can I have some more kind of thing. And what I have seen is in most cases it depends on the child. And when you look at the history of orphanages and when you look at the records that were kept, they were kept by the adults. They weren't kept by the children. So we have very little information on what the orphanages were like for the children who lived in them. We know what they were like for the adults who were running them, but we don't know as much about what they were like for the children who were living in them. And so talking to different children that grew up in orphanages, some of them had wonderful experiences where they had loving people that were taking care of them. They were in a better environment in that their parents, for one reason or another, could not take care of them properly. Others did not have very good experiences. They were separated from their families. They were separated from siblings. They happened to be at the orphanage at a time when some of the personnel weren't maybe as gentle or kind to them as they would like to be. And so I'm not trying to glamorize orphanages or children's homes. They certainly served a very much needed purpose during this time period. But different people had different perspectives of what orphan life was like. So I'm going to give you a general rundown about what the orphans at St. Joseph Orphanage were dealing with. One of the things that's common throughout the records is outbreaks of disease. You have lots of children living in tight quarters, 24 hours a day. 1905, we have a scarlet fever outbreak. 17 children are sick. The building is quarantined for 6 weeks, and 3 infants, unfortunately, passed away. These are not uncommon comments throughout the annals. And you can kind of see why. In 1908, we get our first steam heating system. So what were we heating the building with before? Which is very uneven. If you ever, some of you probably had been in a house that was heated by coal. This is a huge, large institution being heated by coal. You can imagine how cold certain parts of the building were. And so steam heat seems like a very simple thing to us. For them, it was a godsend. It was a even heat throughout the building. 1894, the first male orphan is ordained a priest, and there are about a half a dozen orphans that actually became priests. And there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 young women who became nuns. And so there is that kind of vocation building going on in the orphanages. I love this picture. It's from the Sisters of Notre Dame. It's a little boy hanging up. It's not the clearest picture, but he's hanging upside down on the monkey bars, and his friends are watching him play. But what orphanage life was like for the boys, if you consistently look through the annals, because they had such a large piece of property, they farmed. So they were growing much of the farm. They were growing much of the food they ate. Not only the fruits and vegetables, but they were also raising livestock. They had horses, cattle, pigs, and goats, as far as I can tell throughout what I was reading. So much of the time during the orphanage's existence, there was a working farm. And the boys were required to, part of their day was taking care of the farm. And so the boys were doing some of that work. Let's see. They did have a large, an orchard. The sisters talked about every once in a while about the particular number of apples that were produced this year compared to the ones produced last year, and they had counted them down to each apple. That this year was a good year for apples, not so good last year. But they were using that food to feed, so it was important for them to make sure that they were getting as much out of the land as they possibly could. And there was classroom work. We talked about that first contract, including that the sisters were required to teach the children grammar school classes, the general classes they would receive in any Catholic school in the area. This is a picture from a little bit later on. You'll see the sisters in their full habits, and you see the little boys and girls doing some sort of dance. I can't figure exactly out what they're doing, because the ones in the back are standing up and holding the ones behind them while they're bent over and holding their arms. So I'm not sure what game this was, but they seem to be enjoying it. There's lots of these photographs, pick children and the sister. Sister Mary Louina from Newport came to assist with us. Within 3 weeks, everything reached its normal state. And sometimes it's really interesting what the sisters decided to record. Some things like the hogs was something that they really kind of fixated on. The flu epidemic, not so much. So it's kind of like whoever the sister was that was recording the information was writing down what she thought was important at the time, or when she had time to write. This was one that was really sad to me. John May, who had come to the orphanage at the age of 2, was now the main man on the farm. He had married Mary Wire, and they now lived in a house belonging to the home, meaning belonging to the orphanage. On May 4th, while on his way home from a business trip in Newport, he was killed instantly in a collision with another truck. So the sisters continued to have these relationships with the orphans. A number of the men who worked on the farm worked on the farm as orphans, came back and worked on the farm later as adults, and were hired by the sisters to work. So John May is one example of that. St. Joseph, this is where St. Joseph Parish starts changing. The pastor at the time was Father Berman in the 1920s, Father Joseph Berman. In 1929, he purchased land a little bit further out on the Alexandria Pike. So we're at now what is currently the St. Joseph Parish site, and he's going to build a new school. Now this episode got a little interesting, because usually in the 1920s and 1930s, parish difficulties tended not to get in the paper too much. Now it was kind of kept, within the parish, and disagreements didn't get aired in the newspaper. This instance did. There were many people in the parish that did not want to leave the orphanage grounds. They wanted the school to be built there and eventually a new parish to be built on that site. The problem was that the Orphan Society owned the property, and because it had been given to them, the good part of the land had been given to them by the Walsh family early on, but there was a deed restriction, so they weren't allowed to sell it. So Father Berman decided that he was going to move a little bit further out on the pike and build a new school. The building is still there. So if you're looking at St. Joseph property, the church is on the right. There's a smaller building on the left, and I think it's the younger grades, the kindergarten kids. The kindergarten building, this is the building we're talking about. So Father Berman decides he's eventually going to move the church there, and he's going to move the school there. And the men in the parish get very irate about it. They start writing letters to the bishop. We don't want to move. The school we have is fine. We don't need a new building. They actually go to the paper and are interviewed, and several men in the parish say, if Father Berman builds on this property, we will burn it down before it's built. So this is hot news in Cold Spring. The bishop supports Father Berman, says you need a new school, you can't stay on this property, you need to build in a new location that's got a better location to build an entire parish plant. You can burn the building down if you want, but we're going to build another one in its place. So the next notation in the Sisters' Annals reads, the new school, let's see, let me find it. It's on here somewhere. Oh, here it is. It is a beautiful new building containing 4 classrooms with basement under the entire building. The classrooms are large and airy. In the afternoon of the opening of the new school, Father Berman was transferred to St. Boniface in Ludlow, and Father Streck was appointed the new pastor of St. Joseph. So Father Berman got his school, but he was moved that very day. Actually, Father Berman went to St. Boniface, where my father was, and stayed for 19 years, and Father Streck was at St. Boniface and was sent to Cold Spring. So they did a swap. But that's basically how St. Joe's Parish ended up off the orphanage site and down the road a bit. So that's how the two separate, and that happens in 1929. Although the church remains on the orphanage site until the 1950s. So by 1961, we have a staff of 12 sisters, 1 lay teacher who's teaching needlework, 1 farm manager. I need to spell there. I needed the spell check. I got 1 farm manger. 1 farm hand, 1 maintenance man, and a social worker. So again, we see a leap forward. We have a social worker on the staff now. So 1960s, we're seeing developments in that side. The needlework teacher was Margaret Maggie Gerhardt. Anybody remember her?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. They called her Miss Maggie. In 1961, she was 75 years old, or she was 83 years old, and she had been on the St. Joseph property for 75 years. She lived out the rest of her life at St. Charles Nursing Home. So in 1961, she could no longer care for herself, and so they sent her to St. Charles Nursing Home, which was run by Sisters of Notre Dame. So she ended up her life with the Sisters of Notre Dame. So you do all remember Miss Maggie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Was she nice?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Taught us a lot.
She cut your hair. The sisters were very honest in the annals because they said she was very much beloved by the students.
Yeah.
So they must have been right.
He was a great sewing teacher.
In 1961, diocesan officials gather. We've got an old St. Joseph orphanage. We've got an old St. John orphanage. Both are in, older facilities. Neither one of them are in good shape. The bishop at this time in 1961 is who?
Malloy.
Got to go a little bit further than Malloy.
I thought it was too.
Ackerman is bishop by this point. Yes, so Bishop Ackerman is the bishop. He decides that probably what needs to happen is we need to merge these 2 institutions into one. The question is where? Because of course the St. Boniface Orphan Society wanted it in Cold Spring. The St. John's Orphan Society, which was operating the St. John Orphanage, wanted it in Fort Mitchell. And so there was discussions back and forth. They finally decided that the Fort Mitchell site was probably the best location. And so the decision was made to close St. Joseph Orphanage in 1961 and merge it with St. John Orphanage and to rename it the Diocesan Catholic Children's Home. So at this point we have 42 children. So you'll see by the 1960s the number of children being admitted into orphanages had dropped. We said in the 1930s it was double that number. So the number is dropping off. There's less need for residential care. We have foster care at this point. So foster care is kind of picked up. So families or children are being placed in families instead of being placed in institutions. So there's less of a need for 2 large institutions. They need 1 smaller institution, but in more modern facilities. They needed gymnasiums. They needed new dormitories. They wanted family-style dormitories instead of the large dormitories where all the children were housed in 1 large room. And so this is a movement to try to advance the care of these children. So the decision in 1961 is to merge both institutions into one. I did skip one other incident that I think is an interesting one. This is from 1958, I believe, and the sisters entered this into their journal. It says, among the last admissions at St. Joseph this year were 4 siblings, the Ryan family.
It's 1951.
51? Okay, I got the date wrong. The father of the children was electrocuted while installing a television set in his home. His wife came to his assistance and was killed instantly upon touching his body. The ages of the children remaining ranged from 8 months to 5 years. There were no immediate relatives in the family except a sister and a brother to the father, who were both in religion, meaning one was a sister and one was a priest. The grandmother of these children, when she was alive, was a great benefactor of our home and was accepted, and so we accepted them in spite of the fact that they had not reached the specific age. The one child was 8 months old.
Well, she was 14 by the time we went there.
14.
months.
So, who are we talking about here?
She was the baby.
Yeah, their baby. There's the baby.
And the oldest one, the 6-year-old, was Father Ryan.
Correct.
Father Jim Ryan.
So does everybody know Father Ryan? Young Father Ryan.
Yes, the younger.
Yes, that's who we're talking about here. If you ever heard Father Ryan tell his family story, he will tell you this story. The sisters wrote it down, so it was. I was hoping that there would be somebody here from the family. I thought that was a very tragic story. But it was nice that the grandmother had been so active in the institution that the sisters felt, an obligation to take them in as a family, and they were able to stay together as a family, at least for a time, I would assume. Very good. I'm glad I didn't forget it totally. Another site, this is one of the dormitory rooms. Does that look familiar to anyone who was there? Same beds?
Yep.
They actually got moved to St. John's Orphanage when they combined the two. Yeah. The furniture actually at St. Joseph was of a better quality than the furniture at St. John's, so they moved all the furniture from St. Joseph to St.
I
John's.
don't think it was those beds.
These are different beds?
Yeah.
A little bit earlier, maybe?
These were the earlier.
I think they were earlier.
Those all went down to Father Bidey when
Oh, okay.
they got new beds.
To the Christian Appalachian
Yeah, we
Project?
didn't have those
Very
big
good.
rows on the one.
So, again, looking at these photos, and I'm only getting a sanitized version of what whoever the photographer wanted you to see. So those of you who are in the orphanage, was it as homey as this looks?
Yes.
It was? Yes. You were living, though, still in a large dorm? Yeah, so there were multiple children in one room. Did they divide you by age?
No,
No,
No.
girls and boys.
Yes.
no, just girls.
Yes,
But I mean the girls and then the boys.
Oh, yeah, we were separated from the boys.
correct. Here's a group of the sisters who were coming back for a reunion. All the sisters who were living at the time were invited back for a meal. And so these were sisters who had all worked at the institution at one time or another. I like the one, let's see, if you're looking at the table in the back, the fourth one over. See the little tiny sister?
Yeah.
Yes.
That could be Rucka.
Oh, okay, her regular, one of the. oh,
A
we're gonna-
regular or Rucka.
Yeah, because she was the
Sister Mary John was one.
The first,
She's
this
just
is
really
the middle.
This one?
Up
The
and top, the
large one in the
tiniest.
middle. Yeah, that's just, she took care of the boys.
Tiny as that.
And the story I heard when the Ryan children came, Sister John put him in bed with her because he was so young that she didn't want him to sleep by himself, which was not heard of at all.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm sure.
No, that was not her.
So the end, January, this is the last entry in the annals. Before we get to that, January 1st, 1961, all admissions ceased at St. Joseph. So by January 1st of 1961, they're not taking any more children. By June 2nd of 1961, the last graduation of the 8th grade took place in the school chapel. The last two graduates were Lydia Frilly.
Friday.
Fryman.
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 Fryman?
Fryman.
And Eugene
Friday, yeah.
Whipple,
Wiffle,
Yeah.
Eugene Wiffle.
Wipfel.
Yeah.
Okay, the sisters were right on their spelling. The home officially closed on August 15th, 1961. If you wonder what happened to the children at that point, some were sent to foster care, some were sent to live with relatives, and some were sent to the new Diocesan Catholic Children's Home. But the last entry in the annual, so I read you the first entry in the 1870s. The last entry the sisters wrote was this. It says, 3 sisters, Sister Mary Thaddeus, Sister Mary Wan, and Sister Mary Gebhardt, left the empty building with heavy hearts, but a prayer of gratitude that God had blessed the many years of service there and had allowed the amalgamation to be completed with little or no antipathies. And that's it. So from the beginning to the end. The property was eventually sold and the Veterans Administration built on it. The cemetery was carved out and is still being used today. Of course, a few years before the orphanage closed, the new St. Joseph Church and School were built further down on Father Berman's property, the one that was going to be burned down. So Father Berman prevailed. And so the merger does occur, and now we have the Diocesan Catholic Children's Home. The interesting part of, though, if you think about it, is who ran the St. John's Orphanage?
Benedictines.
The Benedictines did. So the Notre Dame St. Joseph Orphanage is closed, but when they merged the two institutions to the Diocesan Catholic Children's Home, the Sisters of St. Benedict give up that mission, and the Sisters of Notre Dame take it over, and they are still there today. So the sisters are still carrying on that tradition that they started in the 1870s on a different location. So why don't we turn up the lights, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, or you all can answer your own questions, because you probably know more than I do. Yes? 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 Yes. The annals actually talk about the reservoir being built. So the Orphan Society raised the money to build the reservoir. Yes, yes. It belonged to the orphan.
Every piece of clothes.
They left something else.
Any other
We're going
questions?
around the tables in just a minute.
Yes.
They left out something important.
What? I'm always interested what I left out.
You did, the nuns did.
Oh.
In the early 50s, we had a diphtheria epidemic where one little boy died. And he's buried at St. Joseph Cemetery. He was 6 years old. Kicked me out.
I hate to say this, but I think David Marsh complained of a sore throat.
Well, he called him Kicky, but
The doctor diagnosed it as diphtheria. He died a few days later at the hospital. The home was immediately quarantined.
yes.
For 4 weeks, no one was allowed in or out. The greatest cross was the deprivation of Holy Mass and Holy Communion, even on Sunday, for all those weeks. The Sisters of St. Joseph's School were obliged to live in exile at the school, so the sisters that were teaching at the school couldn't come home. They had to stay and live in the classroom. On November 20th, the quarantine was lifted. What rejoicing for the sisters, children, and relatives, some of whom had not seen their children for more than 7 weeks. So the sisters didn't leave it out.
Oh, you
I had it, I just didn't. I was trying to keep on my time limits. Yes, don't ever question the sisters.
I never used, well, I read it a couple times.
Any other questions? Yes. Yes. I don't know.
She taught me.
She taught you? Sister Mary Thaddeus?
For years, she taught first and second grade.
First and second grade for years, but she could have taught her later grades as well. Did she live to be in her hundreds?
No. She died rather young.
Oh,
I mean,
different.
considering.
Different Sister Thaddeus. You have to remember too that at Vatican II, many if the sisters went back to their baptismal names. And so names, it's interesting, my sister went to Notre Dame in the 1970s, my niece went to Notre Dame in the late 1990s. And they talk about the same nuns but with different names. And so my sister has to say, now which one are you talking about? Sister Ethel's a good example.
Yeah.
What was her name before? Sister Patrick? Was it Patrick?
No, she's the archivist at the Nepsigar Skipping.
Okay. But anyway, you have to remember that when they change their names, they're still the same person, they just have two different names. So it's depending on the time period. Yes?
Can you speak up, please?
Where can you find any archives? Like my grandmother was in there in the early 20s.
Yes.
35.
The records that the sisters kept, not on the individual children, but on the institution, are at St. Joseph Heights in Park Hills. The official records are at the orphanage. Now, orphanage records are not always open to the public. So you would have to call there and see what's available. If you could prove, is she deceased?
Yes.
Yes, so that if you could bring some form of proof that she's deceased would help your cause.
Okay, so Orphanage and
St. Joseph Heights, which is the mother house of the Sisters of Notre Dame. It's right next to Notre Dame Academy at the top of the hill. Yeah, on Dixie Highway, right across from Coventry Taylor. Yes.
I went to the Diocesan Catholic Children's Home to get some records from my sisters and brothers.
Yes.
And they gave them to me.
Okay, so it looks like they are available. Somebody had some success.
nice. Thank you so very much.
Yes.
Do they have records of when the children left there? Were they, I think I did some genealogy research for someone, found 3 siblings. The daughter went to the Biding family and was listed as a servant.
Okay.
They were a Cold Spring family.
Yes.
Did they keep records of where these children were?
I can guarantee you they did. They would exist at the Catholic Children's Home. Yes.
Because there was a brother that we can't find what happened to him.
Yes,
So.
yes. There is probably a register of baptisms, marriages, and deaths as well somewhere. I don't know if they would be at the Heights or if they would be at the orphanage. My guess is they're probably at the orphanage. But each house they would have baptized infants. They would have recorded those marriages. It's also possible, and I hate to send people to Father Secretary, but it's also possible that some of those could have been recorded at St. Joseph Parish Records as well.
Possible.
Yes, possibly. I make no promises. Any other questions? Yeah.
Did they ever do any daycare? Some of the orphanages did do.
I never saw any mention of daycare. It looked like once you had to sign a contract, which was typical, that you were turning over your child for a certain period of time. So you
Well, she's Sister Florence.
It was.
Oh, really?
Yes.
She was.
So you could sign them away permanently, but you could also sign them away for and then if the family situation improved, then the next semester you would withdraw. So there was a contract system going on. Usually when you sign them away permanently, it was a legal state of Kentucky document. So by that time you were giving them up for adoption. The nuns, the sisters actually, the institution became their guardian until they reached the age of 18. And then they were on their own.
You have a question back there?
Yes.
Are any of the sisters still alive?
There's 2 of them right here.
Yes. What are the 2 sisters' names?
I'm Sister Mary Martha. I was Sister Ralph. When I was at the orphanage, and when we were allowed to get back to our baptismal name, I went back to my baptismal name.
Yes. And
I'm
Sister...
Sister Mary Harrietta, and I still am Sister
Sister
Mary.
I had a great aunt who was Sister Dolorita.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sarge.
Yes.
They
Yes,
call me
I've heard her called Sarge and the Little General. That tells you a little bit of her personality. Yes. She got things done, I was told. Yes.
I think one that was kind of forgotten, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah.
He was an orphan. He lived there his whole life. He raised his family there.
Oh,
And he
so
was
he
there
lived
until
in
the
the,
orphanage closed.
okay.
And
Did
I
he-
think there's not anybody here that don't remember.
doesn't remember him. So did he take care of the grounds?
He took care of the grounds.
Yeah, okay.
And two of his sons went back.
Very good.
George Borchers is the one who's the maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he took care of the
That
farm.
place going.
Okay.
And the laundry.
Oh, yes, and the laundry, and he'd bring the cows in.
Could you imagine the laundry that you had
Set
to
it
do
on
for
the
that many
table,
children?
and he'd say, if you look in the bag, you see the last thing they saw. And it's you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Is there a book with all this information in it?
No, there's little bits and pieces here and there. There's a history of the Diocese of Covington. Oh, there is. Orphans with Parents, a true story.
Oh, that's only half of it.
Oh, that's part of it. So I did not know this existed. I'm gonna have to buy a copy from the library. It's in the library? In the Covington Library? Okay, good.
Geez,
I'll
it's
check
been
it.
a long time since I've been over there.
Marion Stover. Okay, Marion Stover. I'll look it up on the in the catalog.
It's in the Covington Library, isn't it, Mary?
It's in,
Kenton County.
I don't know, but I gave to him for the Cold Springs Library.
I'll check.
I had some.
It's called Orphans with Parents, a true story, unwanted by our parents by 9 brothers and sisters. I grew up in an orphanage. So it's your personal story. Yes. There's little pieces of the history of the orphanage, the history of the Diocese of Covington by Father Ryan has a bit. There was a short history written in the newspaper by your brother, the famous Jim Reese.
You're sitting right over there.
Where is Jim? There's Jim. I didn't even see you over there, Jim. When I started out at the library in 1986, Jim was in the library at least twice a week working on his columns. It got to the point where we didn't even bother. He would go behind the desk and get the key out and unlock things and then bring it back and put it away. And when we get a new employee, we say, oh, that's Jim, he's fine. No, don't worry about Jim. Just leave Jim alone, he knows what he's doing. Any other questions?
I will make a comment.
Yes.
As a child growing up, I lived south of Alexandria.
Yeah.
So when we go into Newport, it's kind of a long drive.
Yeah.
Okay, when we went from Newport out, it was all nowhere.
We always look forward to passing the orphanage.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to see if the children were out that day.
And were they?
They were.
They
Would have
were.
been on a Saturday
Yeah.
probably, and they were playing outside, and we say, are the nuns with them, you know? And
Yes.
they were easy to pick out.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So it was always, it's a memory.
It was a landmark.
Yeah, a
Yes.
landmark,
Yes,
right.
yes. Yes. How are you doing?
Pretty good, Dave.
Very good.
My cousin here, Marion
Yes.
Stover, who wrote the book,
Yes.
a few copies if anybody
Okay.
wants to
Very good.
get them.
Okay, we taped this tonight, so we'll have copies in our archives of what went on tonight. Well, Father, we're going to make sure you get a copy for the church.
Okay.
My plan is to, I've done the research on the Protestant orphanage, or the Protestant Children's Home in Covington. There was a Protestant orphanage in Campbell County, so I need to do research on it. I've done research now on St. Joseph. I want to do some on St. John and then pull it together either in book form or at least as an article in Northern Kentucky Heritage Magazine. I got to get the Benedictines to open up for me. Yes.
Picture here of what they published for the Labor Day Festival.
Yes.
And this was a picture of all of us. It was in 1948.
Now, how much work did you do leading up to the Labor Day Festival?
How much work?
Yes.
Well, we picked the hair out of the chickens. I made chicken, remember we did so. We made quilts.
We had to pick their socks off, the little yellow socks on the heels of the chickens. Oh, yeah, I do.
How could you forget that?
We did we embroidered a lot of things
Yeah.
for the picnics, all the pillowcases and baby squares. And Miss Maggie made quilts
Yeah.
for the babies and.
What surprised me, and I had mentioned it earlier though, is that it was like a self-sustaining institution in that it was the community that kept it going. It was the residents who lived there that kept it going, and it was the sisters that kept it going. So it was kind of an interwoven community that kept this thing going for 75 years. And successfully through 2 fires, being sold at the courthouse door, all kinds of things. One of my favorites, actually my favorite sister of Notre Dame is Sister Marla Monahan. Any guesses why? She's from Ludlow.
Okay, Garrity.
Yeah. Actually, Father Garrity went to school with my dad. He went to St. Boniface, by the way. That good Irishman.
Vicky's Ludlow.
Yes, he is.
Through and through.
My second favorite sister of Notre Dame is Sister Rita Marie, who was Sister Casimira. And she always used to say this about the college, and after I did the research on this, on St. Joseph, the same thing rang true, and I'll close on this. She said, God wants Thomas More College to exist because any other way it would have never succeeded. And looking through what the sisters had to deal with and all the tragedies and all the things that happened through the years, somebody was watching over that institution. That's all I can say.
You talked about all the fruit trees and everything. We did all the canning and all the canning of all the fruits, and we got yucky and messy. And we did, and the green beans. We had tables like this full of green beans. I swear, when I got married, I'd never can another green bean.
And did you?
No.
Well, you lived up to your own prophecy.
Oh, really?
Yes.
The neighbors was farmers.
Yeah.
When they had, when they put the silo, the goat silo, that's when they cut the corn out.
Yeah.
You brought your team of horses and you went. That's part of being a neighbor.
Yes.
And it wasn't just us, it was the neighbors as a whole. You could see them going.
Yeah. Interesting. Yes.
Were there any children from the southern part of the county or Pendleton County or some of the rural areas?
They took them from all over the greater Cincinnati area, actually. They were not just Campbell County residents. Some were from Campbell County, some were from Kenton County when St. John's was full. Some were moved from Cincinnati over to this side of the river. It was, there seemed to be a network of Catholic orphanages that were working together, and when they had space, if they couldn't get you in your local neighborhood, they got you as close as they could. Well, thank you all.
All right, thank you very much. I really want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's been a great evening. I appreciate you being here. Come back again. Join us for another meeting. Have a safe trip home.